traveling. Danny called and said he can't make it, so looks like we have all that will be coming tonight is here. It is 7:01, so I'll call this special session of the Montoursville Area School District Board of Directors to order on this February 1, 2022 at 7:01 p.m. And I would invite all those present to rise with me and pledge the flag wherever it went. Okay. All right.
You got it, Mr. Snell.
Ron's going to cover it. Very good, Ron. Thank you, Ron. All right. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, the agenda is obviously very short and maybe sweet. And we have a presentation on the health and safety plan. Folks, we have the yellow copy, which is the draft / proposed, and we have the white copy, which is the existing effective that July version of it. I don't know if you just want to sprint through the items, and I'll just make note, this revised, this was changed, and then we'll just go through it like that, or if you've already studied it, you don't need to do that. What's your flavor on that? And then we'll take public comment, and then after public comment, then we'll go to the agenda item of approving or whatever. I've envisioned that we'll take a first and a motion and a second, and at that point, if there are amendments we'd like to make to it, we'll discuss that in amendment fashion and tweak any language so that we believe would be more suitable to the district. So I'd like to proceed in that fashion.
Mr. Schimel?
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't it be better to have public comment first before we go through and to hear what the public has to say, and then we can go through and discuss any changes we want to make after we hear what the public has to say?
That's what we'll do. Yeah, that's what we'll do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just, in terms of a presentation, I was just going to walk through bullet by bullet and say, this changed, this did not change, and just to get our bearings set for tonight. So let's just sprint through that real quickly. Let's go to item. All right. Item 1. The question 1 says how will, etc. The statement below that is ours, and that did not change. Item 2, it asks the question, and again, that language below that did not change. So beginning where the changes occurred are at item 3A, is an additional opening sentence to to our May 24th, 21 action, and then the intent of the additional language there was to essentially say that there's going to be occasions where we'll mask because it's going to get kids back in school. That's the idea behind that. So in a sense, you might say it runs counter to our plan, but our vote, but it really doesn't, because it gets kids back in school, and that's what we're after. And later on, I have a thought or two on that language myself. Okay, item 3B, there was no change there. 3C, no change. 3D, no change. 3E, there was change. And let's see. Well, you can see the difference there. So we can talk about that later then. F, it was revised as well. G was revised. H also, and I also. I a little bit, but we'll talk about that too. I'm not sure there's no typo in there myself. So with that, I guess at this time then, we'll open the floor for public comment. And given the nature of the special session, one agenda item is a health and safety plan. We'd like the public just to limit comment to the health and safety plan. We'll have a comment period after the action items are done, and then we could open the floor to any other thoughts you have about things. But just in advance of the health and safety plan, let's talk about that only. So I invite the public to come forward for a 3-minute comment, or 3-minute period, unpause 3 minutes, and tell us who you are, where you live, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Sharon Meyer, Fairfield Township. Wanted to come and address you guys. As I believe most of you are aware, I'm actually a community member of the Health and Safety Planning Committee. You've obviously received the recommendations out of the Planning Committee, but the one thing that, and I wrote you guys about this, that I'd like to bring in front of the board is my proposal for contact tracing. This on the committee was a point that was of great discussion, and quite frankly, it was very split on the committee coming out in the recommendations. So my recommendation for Section E is as follows. In school, close contacts of a confirmed positive COVID-19 case will be notified of their exposure by the school nurse. Asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case, students and staff are no longer required to be quarantined if determined close contact. If upon notice of exposure, parents and guardians decide to voluntarily quarantine the close contact, that absence will be considered a legal excused absence. Designated close contacts must monitor for COVID-19 symptoms on a daily basis and shall now report to school if symptoms are present. The protocol for COVID-19 positive students will remain the same: 5 days quarantine and fever-free for 24 hours without symptoms, and required to wear a mask for 4 days upon returning to school, which is with guidelines with CDC. If Section E is changed to this, that would eliminate the need for Section F, which at best is going to be incredibly difficult to do. We have a shortage of tests, and the Test to Stay program, just to implement, have parents stand outside, do the testing, is, while I understand the purpose at heart, was to get kids back in school. If you just eliminate the close contact, you wouldn't have to do Section F, so you would eliminate that. The CDC recently has said that those infected with Omicron are usually contagious 2 days before symptoms, which is making contact tracing quick and effective incredibly difficult. Since the pandemic began in this county, Lake Cumming County has not had a single death of anyone under the age of 30. And we keep putting this burden on our children, and we keep keeping them out of school while they're healthy, and we keep making that be there. LoyalSoc recently, their administration did a presentation in front of their board last week and found that only 4% of the students that have been contact traced actually developed COVID. So Montgomery, I believe, was very similar. Out of 95 cases they had in January, 4 went on to get COVID. So I'm just asking that the board allow healthy children to be in school and allow parents to do the job of monitoring their symptoms and keeping their sick children home. We have to get to the point where this is an endemic, and I'm asking for Section E to be changed to be more lenient to those kids. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Asello, 999 Weldon Street. I fully support what Sharon had said about the changes to Section E and then no longer needing of the Section F. What I want to talk about was a side effect of this pandemic and the quarantining and everything going on is curriculum gaps that are occurring within kids. I've been teaching for 20 years. When students have been out sick for a few days or whatever, you can get them caught back up. I've had students that have been quarantined 2 or 3 times within a single school year, so far even just this year. Not even talking about last year. That creates a gap that's hard to fill, especially if it happens several times to one particular child. By this contact tracing being eliminated, we will keep more kids in school. I've been very pro-mask, pro-following CDC guidelines for almost this entire time. I think we're well educated enough about the virus and about managing it and making decisions based off data. Our children need to lead the future, not fall behind. So I just ask when things are reviewed for the health and safety plan that we do make Sharon's recommendations active and put it into the plan. Thank you.
Brenda Oberheim, Woodland Court. I just wanted to say that I also agree with Mr. Asello and Sharon. These kids have been out so often, and I think that the excuse we've heard over and over is, well, parents will send their kids to school sick. Well, it's now time for, the board to trust the parents again and let us have our freedom again. I think that we're responsible enough to be able to send our kids to school when they're healthy and keep them home when they're not sick. It's just time to go back to normal. Thank you.
Veronica Lovely, 1230 Cherry Street. I also agree with all of them. I would like to see everything that Sharon proposed be put into the health and safety plan. Muncie School District has been doing this for months. Their nurse, who's qualified, certified, has been taking control of monitoring the kids that come there that are close contacts. They're still in session, have been. They've been doing this before Christmas. I think we can do this as well. Our kids I see the gap firsthand in under 5 years old. I see it, my child has not been quarantined, but just from all the other kids being quarantined in her class and all the disruptions and the teacher having to stop and go back from that, I see a huge gap in my child's reading just from missing all of that because of her teacher having to be out and be quarantined because of all the stuff. I would really like for you guys to see this and implement everything Sharon just said into our current health and safety plan. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm Paula Hornberger. I live at 161 Warren Street, Fairfield Township. I work at a college, and the learning deficits that we are seeing at the college level due to quarantining and isolation is huge. Students come in, they have no regard for deadlines because they've quarantined so much that their deadlines are stretched. When they get to college, they're not prepared. They're not prepared for anything, and they're falling behind. They're already behind before they even get there. So we're fighting a losing battle if we continue to quarantine these kids, even at the high school level. I know kids that have quarantined 3-4 times. That's a lot of school missed for our kids, especially when they're trying to get into colleges. And that's all I have to say. I believe that we should follow the other schools that are in our area. Loyalsock just implemented it, Muncie implemented it. There's no reason why we can't be utilizing our educated nurses to determine if our children are well enough to be in school. And the parents. We've been through this pandemic. We've endured it with them. Certainly, I would hope that we have learned that we're not going to send our kids to school sick with the idea that we could potentially infect somebody else. It's time for you guys to trust us.
Okay, I assume now that public comment to this is done now. Thank you. And with that, board will move on and The agenda item is approval of the health and safety plan as proposed, as revised. And I'll take a motion to approve that in a second. And is there a second to approve as presented? Okay, not hearing a second to approve the plan as presented, the motion dies, and what that means is the existing safety plan is in place
Wait a minute.
without revision, so.
No.
Folks, we have to second it so we can discuss.
Yeah, we need
Well,
a
that
second
wasn't
to
clear.
discuss. We need a second.
That's not how I understood your. Yeah, I understood that.
I'm sorry.
I just heard that.
Okay, I'm sorry. What'd you hear, David? Tell.
I heard that you need a second to approve this and to move forward.
You said as presented.
Okay, I'm sorry. Second, yeah, the second on the motion, then we can get to amending it. Okay.
Second.
Okay, all right, we got lots of seconds. All right, thanks. All right, sorry, guys. Okay, with that now, let's get into discussion about where we think it needs tweaked, revised.
First of all, Mr. Schimmel, is there any way that we could get Mrs. Meyer's proposal, copies of that, so we can have it here in front of us to look at over? Can somebody go make some copies for us?
The only thing I could do is cast it to the screen, Dale. Dan, I have here on email. Can you hook this up quickly? So while they're working on that, let's go back. I mean, let's go through the items in 1 and 2. Any question there? I mean, should we move on to 3, section 3? Oh, okay. All right. Well, it's going to be quicker. Do you have a copy of it?
I don't. You have a copy.
Oh, okay. All right, good. And I'll keep searching for it here.
I have.
I'll be right there.
Mr. Schimmel? Yes, sir.
Was your question that we proceed or approve 1 and 2, proceed to 3?
Well, is 1 and 2, or any questions about anything that we see that should be revised? I mean, it did change from last time. Is there anything there that we think, needs modified based on where we are, 6 months later? That's what I'm getting at. If there's nothing there, then we're okay.
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Mr. Schimmel,
Yes, sir.
we also have Dottie on the phone here that would like to make a statement. Is now an okay time for that?
Yeah, that's good. Now would be a good time. Why don't we invite a statement? Dottie can't be here, but she wanted to make a statement, and I guess I'll try to find this.
Okay, thank you. I apologize for not being there tonight, but I was out of town. Before we start discussing the proposed health and safety plan, I would just like everyone to consider the following. We all have varying personal opinions as to whether masks or any other mitigation measures work or do not work to prevent the spread of COVID-19. And we can all cherry pick studies to support our narrative. One lesson I have learned over my 46 plus years as a nurse is that you don't always know what you don't know. I can remember several occasions where I used my critical thinking based on current knowledge and information I had on hand regarding a patient scenario. However, when I collaborated with the physician, I found out there were certain pieces of the puzzle I was unaware of. Those pieces were crucial to a sound and effective treatment plan. I have always told my students, one, there's never a stupid question, and two, the scariest nurse is the one who thinks they know it all and does not consult with others. In that vein, I ask that we trust the consensus of the experts who have looked at all the studies, not just cherry-pick ones to fit a narrative. We need to take self and emotions out of our decision-making. What you see brought forth from the Health and Safety Committee comes not only from the CDC and DOH guidelines, but also from the school nurses and administration who have to put the plan in place. They are the ones in the school buildings day after day. They see and know the impact this pandemic has had. They are the ones in almost daily contact with the Department of Health. They know when student-to-student and student-to-community transition is occurring. They need flexibility in this plan to be able to appropriately and proactively implement mitigation strategies amongst a continually changing environment. I also ask that we can discuss this tonight without the vitriol that I have witnessed in past meetings. A racist quote given by a pastor helped me to understand this a little better. He said, when things get so far out of our control, we hold on tighter to try to control them. I get it. Perhaps understanding that can help us give grace to others. Having a different opinion does not make us bad people. When I asked for a mask mandate last month, but it was not approved, I did not like it, but I accepted it and moved on. I did not badmouth my fellow board members. Whatever decisions are made tonight, let's start building bridges instead of tearing them down. Let's open our hearts and minds to care for others and help work out a solution together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mathers. All right, we have Sharon's items, point by point on recommendation for Section E. Let's start working our way through. And on item 3A, the concern I have for some of the verbiage is, and I would propose a verbiage change like this, and would ask the motion or in the seconder to consider this amendment, where it says in the second sentence, the incidental masking will be dependent upon quarantine protocol. I would strike out the last four words as directed by CDC. And then upon quarantine protocol implemented by the district, then I would add in consideration of CDC guidance. And that's all, just considering it, taking it into account, but not binding us to it. The language as directed by CDC, that says we're going to be bound to it. And that doesn't give us local flexibility. And that's what, so I would recommend, and I would like to make that, ask the motion in the seconder to accept that amendment to the language there.
I make the motion to accept that amendment.
Well, the Dale would have to accept it, and Joe, I think Joe just beat you a little bit, David. Okay, they would have to accept that amendment to that verbiage. All right, so Dale, yeah, that second standalone sentence would read like this: incidental masking will be dependent upon quarantine protocol implemented by the district in consideration of CDC guidance. It doesn't bind us to what they say. It doesn't, we aren't directing, they're directing us. It just says that we will take it into consideration but we're going to do what we believe is best for us. And our administration and our nurses are indeed moving that way. From everything I see, we have a report from the superintendent tonight where our nurses want to go with this, and it is, you know, it wouldn't be what CDC says, frankly. So we don't want bound to what they say. That's why I want to propose that. So, Dale, would you be okay with that revision to the verbiage?
Yes.
And Joe's accept that? Okay, so that's amended language in 3A. So if we jump over to, well, there we have B, C, and D. I mean, I think those are pretty safe as they are. Now 3E, if it continues to stand, and I'll throw it out, we'll discuss this some more based on what Sharon's proposing, but where it reads, the district will continue to follow. I wanted to strike to follow, and they would say, will continue its consideration of PDH. We would consider it, but that's it. We would consider it. If it works for us, fine. If it doesn't, no. And then the very last phrase at the end of the sentence, well, the sentence would stop at contact tracing requirements. End of sentence. So that and optional exceptions, blah, 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 that goes away. Keeping it simple, giving us maximum flexibility to do what we believe we need to do as a district, not being bound, tying ourselves down with language that ties us down. So, but I'm throwing it out there, but I think we want to have some additional discussion now on Sharon's protocol, I guess we'll call it. So, and I like what she wrote. My question is, do we want to be so specific in the plan that if we say this, that's what we're going to do? Maybe there's a certain point in time where we're doing even less than what this says. So, but do we have to continue to do this? Do we come back and meet again so we can, loosen this up? Conceptually, I like it.
First, Mr. Schimmel, I think we do need to be specific on it, so there's no question. And second of all, I got to agree with something Dottie said. But the problem is, what she said and what we're getting is two different things, because we're up here trying to decide a health and safety plan, and we don't have any numbers. We don't know what the numbers are. These other school districts are sharing their numbers with their community and with their board. They know they can make a better decision than we can because we don't have any numbers. And that stops us from giving a educated decision on these. I think, I like what Mrs. Myers proposed here. I think it needs to be nailed down, and it can't be vague. I think it needs to be nailed down like she has put it here, and that's my feeling on the whole thing.
I guess, I don't know if this is a friendly amendment or not, but in reading all the emails we received, all the public comment on the health and safety plan, I do like the majority of the aspects of Sharon's 3E. I think it would be a win-win-win and everyone would be happy if possibly we could add for the asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case part, something to the effect of when the county cases or whatever the highest is high the highest or is substantial the highest, I always get those mixed up, that the asymptomatic close contacts can attend school but be masked for 5 days. I know it's 4%, but 4% is 4%. And again, only when the county levels are so high, at the very highest of those, 4 levels? But for all other levels, that asymptomatic close the key is to get them back to school. So all I'm saying is that if there's some chance that they may be asymptomatic and positive, having them wear a mask for 5 days while attending school and not being quarantined seems like a small concession for the safety of the teachers and the other students.
I think our mission here is not to just get them back in school. I think our mission is to keep them in school.
Well, and ideally without infecting anyone else. And again, 4 out of 100 is extremely low, but it's 4 out of 100, and those people may have family members.
But we don't know what our numbers are. They may be lower, or they may be higher. Do you know what the numbers are, Sue?
No, and that's why I think just a thing that when the county is at the very ultimate level, that we shouldn't have asymptomatic close contacts unmasked immediately.
If we allow asymptomatic people to come in,
Hey, Dottie.
5 days typically, and then maximum up to 7 days, and 5 days, and then maximum up to 7 days. Still contact traced, but they won't have.
Dottie, can you hear me? Dottie? Hello, can you hear me?
I don't know whether the board had a chance to look at the superintendent's update today. I'm sitting here comparing what the nurses administration would like to implement. And we're trying to compare it to what Sharon has provided, and there are a lot of similarities. For options for asymptomatic, what the administration and nursing staff wants to do is you allow a parent to keep a child home for a quarantine period if they're a close contact and they're asymptomatic, they could stay home. I think the difference is that here it says allow the child to come to school masked for the quarantine period. So I think the difference is just that this doesn't suggest masking, and what they're recommending is we'll go with masking for anywhere from 5 to up to no more than 10 days, I think is what the max could possibly be, which in reality is probably more like about 5 or 6, functionally, the way it works out.
I don't have that, could I see that?
Yeah, let me put it up on the screen. It came this afternoon. Okay.
Well, I know there's 98th birthday was today, so I actually left there to come here. So, I'm going to take a minute to read the superintendent's update.
Dan, well, it was up on the screen. There we go. So, can you, Dale, it's up on the screen now?
He's got a copy.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Does everybody else have it? Okay, good, all right. So, I'm just looking through bullet by bullet, I don't know, what are the differences? Anybody see differences?
I like Sharon adding to allow the parent to keep the child home, that those absences are legal and excused. I think that's the only point of difference on
Yeah, but that
the
would,
nurses item 1 and.
yeah, absolutely. I won't say that it goes without saying, it almost goes
Right,
without
right.
saying, yeah, for sure. Dan, can you imagine
This late this afternoon?
Sure.
Oh, it's in the superintendent's update.
Here, I'll get them. So yeah, we're pretty much in agreement. As we started this new process with the CDC, what we were finding was, it took about 4 days to know about the positives. So we would end up, and I quit, we would end up calling parents on day 5, saying keep your kid home for a day. So we ended up backing way off on that because it didn't make sense. So we're in agreement with most everything here. I caution you on the absence thing. We have COVID days in the system. If we start marking these as excused when parents are choosing to keep their child home, it's going to sink our attendance rate, and that can have some ramifications. So I prefer, if you're going to get this detailed, allow us to continue marking them as COVID days, because oftentimes kids are still at home working through Google Classroom, so they are still doing school. Some are live streaming. It's different at the different levels. So I would not want to see these marked as excused absences. Those count against the kids. The COVID codes that we're using do not count. They're marked as present. So it helps our attendance rate. The other thing is the school nurses are burdened with other things beyond COVID, so I would hope they weren't the sole point of contact in communicating this with parents. Administration has been doing that as well this year, and we'd like to continue doing that to help the nurses out. There are times there are 20 phone calls to make, in addition to distributing meds and the sick kids that come in and the injuries that happen during the day. So we would like to continue pitching in and helping with those phone calls. The masking, we did keep that in for any type of close contact. So what would happen is, and that number 3 refers to household contacts. That's a 10-day quarantine period, which again is too long at this point of the pandemic. So we can shrink that if they want to come to school masked. If they don't want to wear the mask, then they can stay out and use those COVID days and be marked as COVID. So we looked at that with the nurses as a way to get kids back, get them back quickly, and hopefully stop some of the spread, especially with those household contacts one. When they're under the same roof, it's a little different than here in the building when they're moving around all day, at least at the high school and middle school. So, if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to attempt to answer them. But yeah, we're pretty much in agreement. We need to continue the contact tracing because some parents need to know based on where they work or what they're caring for at home. They need to know that information, but that doesn't mean we're telling kids to stay at home. They can still come to school. So the contact tracing is important for a whole bunch of other reasons. Quarantining we want to be done with for the most part. And then the testing, for those that don't want to send them with a mask, or those that want to get out of this 10-day period, there is a little blurb by the DOH that allows a test on day 5 and return day 6. And those become important for our athletes. They're the ones most motivated to get back, so that's why that's in there. So, thank you.
And board, thank you, Dan. That's why I don't want to pin us down, because they are doing everything they can, and they are working with a lot more parameters than we are aware of. And we don't need to be that deep in the weeds. But if we want to go in and visit them and ask, you're certainly welcome to set up an appointment. They'll be welcome to talk to you. But that's why I just like a single statement on contact tracing, and that's it. And then they implement and you're already hearing that they like the bulk of what Sharon proposes. What the superintendent sent us today is very much in alignment. There are other factors that say we can't quite do it that way because of this reason and that reason. Makes sense to me. So I don't want to pin us down with a lot of verbiage. You get what I'm saying? We have to trust, we talk about trust, we need to trust our administration and nursing staff and them that they're doing everything possible to keep kids in school as much as possible and avoid it every way we can of having kids have to leave school. So,
Right. Heard it correctly on the, if upon notice of exposure, parents, guardians decide to voluntarily quarantine the close contact, the absence will be considered, and this is the additional language, a COVID absence as has been determined by the district. Would that suffice to what your statement just was?
I have Dottie, well, again.
I couldn't quite understand what Dave was saying, what Dave Young was saying, but Dave Schimmel, I agree to keep this broad because we can't be meeting on a whim to change something as guidance changes or case numbers change. So I do agree with what Dave was saying on keeping it broad, and then maybe just letting the nurses publish a policy on what they're currently doing based on the need of our schools. Doesn't have to be in the health and safety plan per se.
What I'm struggling with, Dave, is if these options aren't somewhere where parents can see them, they won't know from our health and safety plan that this is what we're doing. How, can there be a way of putting these two options somewhere on our website?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree.
Not necessarily appending or attaching them to the health and safety plan, but having it somewhere where, if one goes to look at the health and safety plan, they'll also see this.
Yeah, no, I agree. And a few weeks back, I did not realize the flexibility we were operating with, and I was ready to keep one of my kids home, and they didn't have to. I wasn't that deep into the weeds myself, so, no, I agree. I like the idea of getting it out there so folks know what they're dealing with. Yeah, I'm in favor of that, absolutely.
Was the superintendent also going to send a letter out to the community, or?
A distribution email would, with what goes to everybody and the brother would say, this is currently what we're doing and how we're doing it with all these elements, yeah.
I do find this language very acceptable. I like the way it addresses the asymptomatic child.
Now, which language? What, the superintendents or Sharon?
The language that was presented is coming from the nurses.
Nurses. Yeah, I think the only difference really to speak of is that the school would require some masking, and it probably wouldn't last more than 5 or 6 days tops. Other than that,
My question is, if I'm understanding this correctly, we are going to stop with the contact tracing and not require students or staff that are in close contact that are asymptomatic, we're not going to require them to mask up. The only requirements for mask is going to be somebody that tests positive, that quarantines for 5 days, and are fever-free for 24 hours without symptoms, come back, and they'll be required to wear the mask for 5 days. Am I correct in saying that's the only masking that's going to be required?
I'm reading under options for asymptomatic students that would have been identified through
Contact tracing.
contact tracing. They come back to school masked for the quarantine period, even if after the 5th day. But they're allowed to come back to school.
they should never be out of school. If they are asymptomatic, they shouldn't
Right.
be
Yes, that's true.
made to
That's
stay
true.
out of school.
Right, they're coming to the school masked.
They shouldn't even be masked, they're asymptomatic.
I guess I'm trying to weigh you on what does seem like a very reasonable approach to also the folks that are just so afraid, I think there's no other way to put it, afraid of coming in contact with someone that has been exposed.
Stay home.
And the mask seems to offer them, if nothing else, more psychological relief.
Nobody's saying that they can't wear a mask. They can wear a mask. We aren't saying that you're not allowed to wear a mask, but we need to say we're not mandating that you wear a mask.
But it's already a compromise to let them come to school as immediately upon being a close contact, so why not? And first of all, we're not doing away with contact tracing because, like Sharon, we still have to notify the close contacts, as Sharon says in her first one.
But we're not making them stay home and miss education.
Correct, correct.
And like I said, when we started debating this, if we had numbers, which we don't have and haven't had, it'd be a lot easier for us all to make a decision.
But I guess, like Sharon said, Montgomery and Loyalsock, their numbers seem almost identical. 4 out of 95 is about 4%.
Oh, I agree. And it's low.
Right, but again, if those 4% are catching it from an asymptomatic person who's now going to be in school, we're going to say that 4% doesn't matter, or the inconvenience of wearing a mask for the child who's
Or are those 4% catching from the person that had COVID? Or elsewhere. I gotta agree with the audience there. Or elsewhere.
Can I ask a question, since I'm sort of new here? Why don't we have any numbers?
It goes back to when this first started, the microphone? Okay. When it first started, there was some quarantining done because certain students were identified as being basically the cases. And when parents found out who the cases were, they started texting these students and being incredibly belligerent to the students for doing this to other students. And unfortunately, it's a small world, and usually, the times that my one or two of my kids have been, had to stay home for a few days for contact tracing. They knew who it was. They knew who the case was, and it's unfortunate and sad, but to reach out to a student and start getting on them. So that's why the district just simply hasn't given the numbers. And the fact is,
There's no name associated with the number. There doesn't have to be a name associated with the number.
No, there isn't. We wouldn't do that, but the grapevine qualifies it.
You're asking us to make a decision based off of conjecture. And that's not fair.
Dave,
What kind of numbers, what numbers will be want?
Well, and I guess my point, I understand that, and I think a lot of people whose athletes had to miss games from being close contacts were very angry, and especially in small schools, it was possible to identify without the name. I guess one thing I've always wondered is why can't we post the numbers with a 2-week delay or something where there's enough of a delay that it's not obvious that this is an active case right now or something like that, or not conglomerate the numbers together so that individuals.
That's in the report. I'm fine with that. I mean,
Dave, I do have to say one thing, that with these protocols, this health and safety plan, the way it is, they can tell who was COVID infected. by the way the students have to do the protocols. So they can tell who, it's no different than giving the numbers. When they say a student, let's just say that the one Mrs. Myers, her suggestions here, if they say a student come to school that was out 5 days, and they come back and they have to wear a mask for 5 days, they're going to know who it was. You had COVID. So what is the difference between that and getting the numbers? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true now with the current situation.
I know, okay, for me, I guess I'm coming from a different direction. I'm not particularly concerned about the numbers, and for one reason. There's people out there, and people in other buildings, and nursing staff, who are managing the best they can. I don't want to get down to such level of operational detail that I have to make these kind of decisions, because frankly, I don't think the school code wants us doing that. Now, for me, it's a question of trust. Do I trust that the staff, the administration are doing everything possible to keep our kids down, to keep our kids in school, and not send them off, for any reason, any quarantine-related reasons? I trust that. I don't need the numbers when I trust what they're doing, and the superintendent's report today to us indicates that they're doing everything they can. Now, it's not as accelerated as, say, that some would like it to be sooner and like, eliminating contact tracing, and Dan explained why we really need to keep that in place, at least for certain other reasons, and I agree. They know that. I didn't know that, and I don't know that I need to know that. I mean, now I do, that's fine. So, I guess I'm coming from a different direction. What would I do with the numbers if I knew them anyway?
Well, I'm just saying.
But if it's the sentiment of the board, we'll make that point. Well, I'll make that point with the superintendent, and we'll get that ball rolling. Okay.
Okay, but
I was just trying to make the point that you're asking us to make a decision, and it goes back to my former career. If we're having a crime problem in a particular location, but you're not going to tell me how many crimes are being committed, how do I know what resources to put to it?
Right.
That's my point here. What resources do we put where in the elementary school, the middle school, or the high school? Where's our problem? We don't know.
And Dave,
it moves around.
yeah, and Dave, as far as you saying you want to keep things vague, I don't think we can keep things vague when we have parents that look at the health and safety plan to see what they're supposed to follow. So I don't really think that we can make it vague. I think we have to pin it down.
Dave,
Well, these emails, the distribution email that says to the families, we're doing this, and these scenarios, we haven't really had that. I agree. And so that kind of communication is a must, and I'm all on board. I agree.
Dave, are you saying we're suggesting that the details, the fine details, come directly from the administration as they see fit? Is that what you're saying here?
The plan has enough flexibility. They've been tweaking it as we go, and so what they're proposing, what the email we got today, is basically the next iteration of what they want to do in regards to contact tracing and quarantining.
But like the email that you showed up here, it said that asymptomatic contacts would be back in school with masks. That would be the administration, the nurses' discretion. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. They do want to keep that element of masking. Again, we're talking 5 to 6 days.
But then what you're saying is without board approval, let's say the cases in the county plummet, they could say, okay, we're not doing that anymore.
Right. They could even say, we're not doing contact tracing anymore. It's such a burden, and let's just forget the mask thing. So we're essentially saying to the administration staff, nursing staff, and that operate this at a granular level, but here's the blueprint, and it's general enough that that you do what you believe is best to keep kids in school. And
has there been discussion with everybody? I'm assuming you've had discussion that they're comfortable with being responsible for those rules.
Well, you see what the superintendent sent out today, that's how that's what they want to implement.
Okay.
And, you know, yeah, that's from them, that's not from me or anybody else that I know of.
I don't think we should put on the administration's shoulders the decisions. I think we need to make the decisions here so the administration knows what they have to do. They don't want to have to question in their minds, is this what I can do? And am I going to get in hot water if I do this? I think we need to pin it down, like I say, and I'm sticking to that. We need to pin it down so they know what they should do and the parents know what they should do.
I mean, I appreciate that too, having their backs, and that would do that, nailing it down. Sort of the irony is, though, we've been at this for 20 months, 22 months now, and I think in about 6 weeks, I think we're talking endemic. This is the flu. Let's move on with our lives. This is all over. So, the horses are kind of out of the barn and out running in the pasture, and, we're a little late to the party if we wanted to control it at that level, I guess is what I'm implying. So,
I think just a little different viewpoint on this. I believe that the guidance that I, as a board member, giving the administration is, I want the buildings open, I want children in class,
yeah.
and that's your mandate. Do what you need to do. I don't need to see the numbers. You're the ones looking at the numbers. You know whether or not you have teachers that are there to teach the class. Basically, I want the buildings kept open, and I want the kids in the class. And that's what I look at. These options are putting students back in the class, and not sending them home, waiting to see if they're positive or not. So whatever we need to do to make that happen, that's what I want to do with the board meeting.
Okay, so what would the phrasing of E be then? It seems like the nursing email said that DOH is kind of no longer in the business of contact, so what we at least strike?
That E language, that very last half, and optional exceptions, well, that just all goes away. The reference to CDC, PADOH, it's just not there anymore. And the sentence would read, the district will continue its consideration of PDH contact tracing requirements. That's it. Done. Very day, we'll do, essentially saying we're going to do what we're going to do. Thank you for showing us something PDH. We're going to do what we're going to do.
Well, but that email from whatever nurses, it does list, as outlined by, it seems like DOH should be out of there, but whatever, like you said, consideration of CDC should be in there.
Well, they're saying, they're going to consider it. They're going to see what are they, they're going to look at what's the protocol now, what are they saying we should do? We may or may not do it depending on our circumstances. And we're essentially saying that they've been moving all along so far to try to keep kids in school and avoid having them out of school. This having E, which is this loose language, essentially says to the administration and staff that continue to keep kids in school. Do everything you possibly can. Now, short of a motion that says that no child shall be quarantined or traced or whatever, something like that, short of some kind of a motion like that, there's a point where we have to trust the administration is doing everything they can to keep kids in school. And I'm comfortable with that. I believe in it, I'm comfortable with it, even though it's vague. I trust them.
I would like to have included in the wording that we are going to end contact tracing.
But that implies that they will be informed You have to inform people.
You're proposing for E, you're proposing to amend as a contact tracing will no longer be done by the school district.
That's right.
Okay.
So Ron, you're saying that the people who are close contacts, those families won't be informed that their child was a close, again, I don't think we need to say what's gonna happen, but I don't think ethically you can't tell the families of the, I mean, again, Sharon's thing says, the confirmed positive cases, those contacts will be informed of their exposure.
And I think, I'm reading here, our employees, the nurses are saying, we still wish to contact trace, however, with the quarantine period being shortened to 5 days. I mean, that's the expert that I'm relying on in this district. And that expert is saying, we want to continue to contact trace.
But there,
My hope is, Ron, that yes, very shortly, they're going to send a note back to us and say, you know, we don't need to contact trace anymore.
but there you're quarantining for 5 days. Now, Dan did say it's 4 days normally that the test comes back, so they already would be out, or they could be in school 4 days before there's contact trace, but they still miss a day there.
No, use the word quarantine for that. Contact trace just means the close contacts are notified. And we're saying we're gonna do away with the quarantine process.
Well, then let's have it in there that, we're not gonna quarantine asymptomatic.
I think, options.
I think
They're allowing the children to come to school masked for the quarantine period.
Yeah.
well, they shouldn't be masked, Dale.
They could be positive.
Yes, at this point, they still need the mask because they've had the exposure. As much as I agree with you.
Because they don't work. Masks don't work.
Masking is.
It is what, Dale? Masking is what?
5 days and you're in school. It's better than being at home.
I'll agree with you there, and I also say that if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If that makes you comfortable, wear a mask, whether you wear a cloth, whether you wear a gaiter. Hey, look, this school district bought gaiters for every kid in our district. They're cloth. They do nothing.
I know, but I'm going back, Ron, to what I consider the expert here for me. That's the nurses, the administration, and that's what they feel comfortable with. And yeah, I do believe contact tracing is on its way out. It's not going to be here long. We've already basically eliminated masking. All we're saying here is for those that had close contact to a positive case, they mask. They're back in school, but they mask for 5 days.
No, we had one asking for amendment to the language you need to eliminate contact tracing for the motion and the second. Are you okay with that amended language or not? Will you accept this amendment? To eliminate contact tracing. We've already had explained to us why there are other compelling reasons we have to contact trace that are go beyond just seeing where the students are and whether they should be quarantining or whatever. There are other factors, and I agree with Sue that we have an obligation to tell folks when the student has been exposed. I think we have to do that. I don't know how we can get away from that.
Dave, when I say I'd like to see where no contact tracing, I'm not saying that the parents shouldn't be notified. What I'm saying is that's the only thing that there's no requirements for masking those asymptomatic kids, and there's no requirement for keeping those asymptomatic kids out of school. That way, the parents can decide whether they want to quarantine their kids or not, but it isn't our decision to quarantine them.
Can't we compromise that in school the mask is clearly better than quarantined out of school and take this one step at a, I mean, again, follow the.
Again, if they want to wear a mask, they can wear a mask.
Yeah, mask from the mask.
Folks, this is the board's time. So, okay, so it isn't contact tracing per se that you're asking for this amendment to, that's what it is. You will eliminate quarantining in total? Is that what? Is it?
Quarantining asymptomatic.
Quarantining, all right. No, so the difference is, I think, is that we're going to be avoiding it, quarantining the asymptomatic. It's just the difference is they can be, we want the masks for those handful of days that they're in school. And is that where it is? I think that's where the difference is, right? The recommendation from administration is kind of what you're saying. I mean, when I read 1, 2, and 3 here, just the masking would continue for those students if they want to come back. So that's the difference between the two, I think. Am I diagnosing that right?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that and the fact that if they're asymptomatic, they shouldn't have to quarantine that any days, let alone 5 days. But like Dan said, usually it would only be 1 day. They shouldn't even have to quarantine for that 1 day if they're asymptomatic.
Correct.
What the administration, okay, what they're saying here is that the household contacts wouldn't have to be quarantined after around day 5 with a negative test. Let's see, item 2 was allow the child to come to school masked for the quarantine period, even if before the 5th day. So that's, I think that means what you want. Parents to keep the child home for the quarantine period. I think we find that acceptable. Shared verbiage.
It's the same, except.
I mean, it seems like the difference is just whether it's a mask or not. And we're not, we're talking 5 days. And whether it's window dressing or whatever, it's 5 days, plus or minus a couple days.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
Under this proposal, we've heard a lot of people talking about certain kids that really, have difficult times with masks. Would this give the nurses actually the ability to, knowing a kid's personality or their learning disabilities or whatever, to say, okay, we're not going to force that kid to wear a mask under these circumstances? Would they have that ability to do that?
Yeah.
Given what E, I guess what I suppose E would say, we're essentially saying to the staff, do your best with this, keep the kids in school, avoid quarantining them. The only element that's here is the mask, and And if that child well, if they have a medical exception, you know, obviously no mask is necessary. Yeah, I think we would, I think it's sort of applied. Again, we're giving them the flexibility, or we're gonna write down every job title for what we want to happen. And that's what I'm trying to avoid. It is an element of trust here. Do we trust them to do everything they can? And they know our seven. They know what we want. We want kids in school, we want to avoid booting them out of school. We want them here learning. And we've already said the masks are optional. So I guess it's a philosophy of how you want to approach this.
Dave, what about the wording, quarantining and masking for asymptomatics would be optional?
Quarantining and masking for asymptomatic children, students is optional.
I mean, we already got masks optional until we get to the case of a positive case or contact tracing. We could still do the contact tracing, but make quarantining and masks optional for asymptomatic.
I feel right to remove the mask if it's asymptomatic and there's a negative test. So if we have a way, for that asymptomatic, close contact, get the test, we can go back on mask. When they have a negative test. If you don't take the test, they come back for 5 days. Go back to school.
He keeps saying, come back.
Yeah.
And then runs with
And they shouldn't even be out of school, that's what I'm saying.
Right, that's the problem.
They shouldn't even be out of school.
And the nurses are stating there that it sometimes takes 4 or 5 days before they actually think about it.
And I didn't mean, they're not out of school, asymptomatic, they're back in school, masked, but if they've got a negative test, and it's day 2.
Oh, they can get unmasked?
Do you realize how many people you're going to have required to get tests?
No, that's their option.
Right, if they don't mind not wearing the mask.
And that ends it, but if they are really against the mask, then do the test, and with an asymptomatic negative test.
Almost sounds like a punishment.
No, Ron, it's just trying to follow.
You're getting out of
our
there.
staff feels
Show that you're not
responsible.
contagious.
And our expert, Ron. I'm not an expert. Anyway,
I like that, Dale. Show that you're not contagious.
I can make to this masking issue. Once contact tracing goes away, which I do believe, Ron, is going to be sooner rather than later, then I want to have a discussion about why we are continuing to have a health and safety plan for this particular virus when we have gone for ages with the influenza flu virus and have had no contact tracing. We've had half the kids out on a school day. And that's just the way that it was. We didn't mask. If they had a fever, cough, they stayed home.
Right.
I'm looking forward to the day when we have that conversation about why
There's a million people haven't died.
You and me both. And I agree with you on that last statement you made, because we didn't close the schools down. We didn't send kids home because they had close contact.
2 years ago, we didn't know what we're dealing with.
And it's time for it to stop.
And that's personal opinion. But getting back, I offer that as a compromise to getting out of the mask earlier. Again, for parents, for children that really do not want to wear that mask. They're asymptomatic, they've had a close contact, get the test, negative test, asymptomatic, they're back to school without a mask. You don't want to get the test, that's fine, you just gotta wear a mask for 5 days.
I second that.
Well,
Do we include the weekends?
okay.
Yeah.
Do we, Dale's,
Comment to that.
Weekend, yeah. 5 calendar days.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure.
Mr. Chair, when we have Donnie again, who wants to make a comment? Sure.
I just need to add a comment that you can't, that a negative test initially does not validate that a student may not be contagious. The tests are negative initially, and it takes sometimes 3 days or 4 days until it would turn positive. That's one reason we don't require testing and no masking for the positive students. They still have to mask for day 10. I would not
Yeah.
think that
Positive case,
negative test in lieu of masking is appropriate. We need to trust our nurses and what they're asking for, and we need to trust the experts. I'm listening to everyone talking, and we're still giving our own opinions.
Yeah, but Dottie, Dan already
And
said,
allowing asymptomatic people to
Dan already said that by the time they get a positive test back, it's been 4 days. So if the asymptomatic ones take a test and it's negative,
It's already.
it's probably been 5 days or more when they get the results back. The asymptomatic person I'm talking about.
They accept a rapid test for this, or does it have to
And I always lose track of which one's more accurate.
Well, you're talking about the PCR, not the rapid test.
be the PCO?
I'm talking about any COVID tests.
Well, there's a difference on the rapid test at home tends to be negative early on.
Yeah, but I don't think we accept the rapid home test here, do we, Dan?
If they tested at the high school, if they tested in buses, yes, we have.
If they what?
If they test in the bus, if the parent comes and tests their child in the buses, we accept that test, if I observe it.
When did we approve that, Dan?
Yeah, because it just had to be observed.
When it was the parent that wanted to give the home test, so we're not involved in me observing it. When I get back to school, that was the way to do that.
China. China too, by the way.
All right, what are we doing here?
Dale, you put the parameters to, well, you offered some thoughts on how you would see a close contact that was asymptomatic coming back, or being able to do a maskless, right, by testing. Otherwise, they would test. Otherwise, they would mask.
Here from the superintendent's update.
I mean, that would be, that could be an amendment, but it's a detail that we have other details of what the administration is recommending with the report today. The idea that, to me, just conveying that and if we have a consensus that, yes, administration, we want to see this implemented, I think they'll implement it. We don't necessarily need a motion, we don't necessarily need it in the plan. They know how we feel, and I believe they will do it. If they see that several board members are saying, yeah, we want to implement what Dale said. I'm comfortable with that, I think they'll do it. I don't think there's anything that gets in the way of them doing it, except the fact that testing will be needed. And we do have tests here. We have the antigen tests, which takes us on to F. But again, we can write down line by line what we want and slap it in section E, or we can express as a board what we want the administration to do, some of these extra wrinkles, and trust that they will implement the best as they can.
Did I hear you correctly? You said we have tests here?
Yeah, we have tests available. Yeah.
Where?
The different schools.
You want to read F on the last health and safety plan, please?
Yeah, so what?
What do you mean, so what?
So they test here. We're not testing any. We're not doing the testing. There's tests here, but we're not doing the testing.
Why are we even supposed to?
If somebody wrong, why does
this health and safety plan even come to the board when it's not followed? Why?
Well, we're not testing. The parents are testing. If
They already found out that the testing is being done on school property against the health and safety plan.
So, you wanted the students to be out of school. Okay, thank you.
Don't turn it around.
I just turn it around
Because this is a health and safety plan that was voted on by this board, and it's not being followed. And now you're saying that you don't care that it's not being followed.
I didn't say that. The better thing was we had students who were in school because we had tests available for the families to do it. So, it doesn't have the same effect as a board policy. It's a plan. It's not, it's kind of like saying that CDC guidance is a law. No, it isn't a law. We know that. We've had that debate before.
But wait, is it true that the committee adopted, I mean, I know the board didn't vote on it, but on the yellow version, that parents administering the test on school grounds was okay?
Well, that's proposed.
Right, but Sharon, was the committee in agreement on that, or?
Yeah, we were, and here's the thing too though, but the problem is it wasn't voted on by the board yet.
Right.
So that's, well, I agree with that, but if you amend E, and the reason it has to be specific is that as a parent, this changes all the time, which is why you want it specific in there. Because in the beginning, we had COVID-19 for 90 days, you were exempt from quarantining, and that was in the health and safety plan specifically, and then somehow it magically disappeared because guidance changed. So honestly, Dave, when I'm sitting here, the reason I got so specific and as a committee member wanted specific is as a parent, and you all, there's a bunch of you that are parents of kids in this district. It is so frustrating not to know exactly what those requirements are. I didn't know, Dave, that the testing was already being done in the loop yet. Yes, it was a recommendation, and that was okay, if we're going to have these kids quarantined, yeah, I guess, okay, you can test to get out. But if you're not quarantining this asymptomatic kids, you don't have to do E. And it has to be, for a lot of it, I agree there's vague and flexibility. This specific part, I don't. For the sheer fact that it is so confusing as a parent, not to know from day to day what is going on, whether, okay, is my asymptomatic kid, and from building to building, there needs to be continuity. And I know that came out, and I appreciate every single thing those nurses are doing, but it is difficult. It is difficult parenting through this. It is difficult not knowing what the and that's why I bugged you guys all in the beginning of the year on the contact tracing form, because it was changing all the time. It needs to be specific in contact tracing. It needs to be specific in testing. And Dale, the reason we have to fill out this stupid thing is to get ESSER funds. That's it. It can be as vague or as detailed as it wants to be. And And I hate, sorry, I said that during the committee meeting, take note, I said it before, and that's why we're doing this. So, if we want to do contact tracing, let's be specific, so every single parent knows. And that, I know I'm an audience speaking time, but you asked to, just let me know where I'm at.
Well, you're one of the more rational folks I've heard, so thank you. Okay. All right. All right. Yes.
I think, I guess the second motion that I made, it dealt with, I'm going to call these administrative regulations. There are these two options. So that was not a motion to adjust the health and safety plan. That was a motion to adjust, and I'm going to use the term administrative regulation, because that's the other place that the administration would go to find guidance.
Yeah.
We have the board policy, but then there's also how the administration is going to adapt and administer that policy. So that's where I see these options for asymptomatic students and staff, or options for symptomatic students and staff. That should be incorporated somewhere there in those administrative regulations. And those would be available then, for the public or other board members to go and to see. But that does need to be communicated, as Sharon's talking about there. To the parents. And that's why I was talking about, there has to be some sort of communication from the superintendent go out to them that this is the guideline the administration is using. If we're not going to have it part of the health and safety plan. And I am not in disagreement that it can be a regulation, but not necessarily be that detailed in the plan. But the communication to the public has to take place.
Okay, that brings us then back to E. We really don't have a proposed, we have an amendment proposed to E. I don't think we do. We don't have anything accepted by the motioners.
I'd like to take into consideration what Mr. Snell said earlier about making quarantine masking optional for the asymptomatic folks. Because we were having a conversation about whether or not we should do testing to return kids back to school or wear masks. I tried to schedule a test just through CVS, and there's nothing available within 100 miles for the next 14 days. I just tried to recently, just an annual check with my primary care doctor 7 days before I could get in to see that doctor. I also tried to buy an at-home test through just CVS, and they were completely sold out. I know that we can get free ones through the government. I ordered mine, but I haven't seen them yet. Who knows when we're going to get those? So that's just my concern, that if we say, hey, everything would be good if you get a negative test, well, that's 42 days from now. It didn't really do us a lot of good, unfortunately.
Actually, believe it or not, ours came in about 10 days. Yeah, they make miracles, I think. Outside that, I'm sorry? So what I was saying about the language that Ron was proposing, that's one piece of number of line items, and that's what I'm saying. Are we going to put a bunch of line items in, and if we do, what are they going to be? Or do we essentially, as the board say to administration, you hear us, implement this, do this, please? Or do we, after this is passed, and we're still on the health and safety issues, do we want a motion that essentially says, we want administration to follow blah, blah, blah? I mean, we can have that as a separate motion too, if we want to do that. As an administrative regulation, we'd like to, the board to adopt, or like the district to adopt this regulation regarding our health and safety plan. I don't know how we want to work our way through this.
I think given what's come of light tonight, that it does need to be in the health and safety plan. I think it needs to be pinned down on what's going to be done. I don't think it can be vague. We already just found out that even when it is vague, it isn't followed. So I don't think we should make it vague.
So that we need wording to make it specific. And then that's when we get to one way or the other. Right now we have two pieces of paper with some good phraseology on it, but it's not. we haven't proposed an amendment to E with the right wording. And that's where we have to go there, or just simply have to make E as vague as possible, and say administration, you see the good comments, solid comments from Sharon, you see what you're proposing, we hear what Dale said and Juan said, and Todd's agreeing with this as far as the optional masking for the asymptomatic, that kind of thing. And then say, please implement this. Please make this happen. It's up to you folks at that. We go either way, we just have to do something. Or call for a vote and kill the plan.
I was trying to understand if we were going to take Sharon's and replace and put that in under E, and then if we add the optional masking for the asymptomatic return at the bottom, after her bold, I think that would do it.
Okay, so Jay, we have that. We have the verbiage on the. Make sure we say this right. We have optional masking for asymptomatic, right? Correct. Okay.
Meaning asymptomatic close contacts, you're saying, right?
Mr. Shillman.
Oh, well, we're trying to close the loop here with David. All right. So well, okay. Hang on, wait a second. We have the 5 bullet items from Sharon, and then this additional, caveat, whatever. Would that comprise? Would you propose that as an amendment to?
See, I'm trying to help you here. You're not letting me.
Well, I just want to
it has to do with that.
I'm proposing an amendment to section E to add that to it. And that way we do away with F.
With Sharon's her second bullet point, we could change that to say, with asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case, students and staff quarantining and masking will be optional.
Do we have to vote on that, or are we taking multiple suggestions?
No, between what David's saying, I mean, he has, obviously, you have formally proposed that as an amendment. We're working something out here. Ron's tweaking some of Sharon's proposed language, so we can try to come together with verbiage that will essentially end up in the plan. So, all right, Ron, one more time on that second item. Her second line, asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case.
Students and staff quarantining and masking is optional.
I think it reads asymptomatic close, as it stands now, asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case students, okay, all right, I think the comment there is what, all right, so, if it read, for asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case, or in the event of students and staff.
There's asymptomatic close contact with a confirmed case, quarantining and masking of staff and students will be optional.
Yeah.
Okay. Say it again, Todd.
In case of asymptomatic close contacts of a confirmed case, quarantining and masking for both staff and students will be optional.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
I either didn't get that nurse's email or there's something going on with my computer, but as I was reading it up here, did I not read the nurses were recommending that those asymptomatic contacts do wear masks?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to follow that recommendation, so, yeah.
Okay, so, all right, that's, Dale, okay, we have the proposed language for amendment to E. So I guess in essence what would happen is the verbiage that's in there now would go away, because now we have specificity. Dale, I think we have the language for what would be E. As an amendment, do you find that acceptable?
No.
All right, so that amendment isn't being accepted by the motioner or the seconder.
What about, masks will be optional when the county numbers are low or moderate, and masks for 5 days will be required when the county numbers are high or substantial, unless a negative test is provided. Totally splitting the difference.
I don't want to be tied to the county. I don't want to be tied to this. We don't.
I agree, Dave, because
we care what happens.
this district isn't the county. This district, we can't include ourselves with Williamsport, Tice, close, where there's a lot of people. We just can't. We're spread out. We don't get the cases, the high cases. So I agree. We can't tie this.
And I don't want to put the burden on the staff, the faculty to monitor, who's going to monitor that? It's high 1 week, low the next, but then it gets high again the following week, we're back and forth, back and forth.
Okay.
So I guess then, Dale, if you didn't accept it, will you accept, students will not be quarantined, they can return to school masked, unless a negative test is provided? Is that kind of where you were going before?
What I'm saying right now, I made a motion to approve the plan with the adjustments they initially proposed. So you can use the term vague if you want to, but yeah, that's what my motion was to approve. We had discussions then that talked about these options for asymptomatic and symptomatic students being outside the plan. And I'm very supportive of those. I'm just not supportive of being in part of the plan. So I think we just need to vote on the original and then come back at it again.
I don't know that we're going to get specificity. I think the motioner and seconder. I'm comfortable with our district and administration staff and nurses. They hear us. They know what we want, and we just need to make that, convey that to them in as strong terms as possible. That please, you hear what we want for this staff. And then I believe if they are doing that, they will do that. That's a confidence I have. But we aren't going to be able to, I don't think we're going to be able to cross the hurdle into getting specific language in here.
Could we then require that they, like you said, that it's well posted, and also that the board receives an email anytime it's changed? So that parents and the board are immediately aware, if anything's being done differently?
Yeah, we can, sure, we're the board, absolutely, we can insist on that, and that'll start tomorrow. I'll be talking to Christine and say, this has to happen, this needs to be out, we need to know these things. The board has been very unequivocal tonight about it, and this has to happen.
So their details will be on the website, is what we're saying?
Yeah, I proposed yesterday to her that, look, once you come up with these, people have to know what we're doing. We have the distribution email that goes out to everybody in the front. Use that as a tool. Then yes, obviously post it on the website. I mean, we get that 3 different emails at our house. So, and the board now gets the same messages as well. Well, look, Gail, I'm going to propose an amendment to E that just simply reads, the district will continue its consideration of PDH contact tracing requirements, period. That's it. We're going to consider it. Doesn't bind us to it, doesn't mean we follow it. It means we can do what we darn well please, what we think is in our best interest. So, because as it is now, since we're going to follow, we found ourselves following them. And no, that wasn't the intent of the plan even back in July. We debated this idea of keeping as much local control as possible, and so to follow PDH contact tracing requirements, who, you know, they for whatever reason, they haven't been challenged, and we shouldn't rely on them.
Where is the piece that the administration is making, the nurses are making this decision? Where does that power come from if we don't put it there?
Like Dale talked about, he talked about there's in my world you have statutes, laws, and acts, and then it filters down to your agencies and regulations. And regulations don't have the full effect of the law. There's actually some flexibility in there sometimes.
So by now,
we have administrative regulations. We have board policy, which is the law of the district. But we have administrative regulations, and that gives the administration their game plan at a much granular level on how they operate the district. Policies up here, regulations down here.
But I guess what I'm saying is this is still, I mean, we've been doing this for 2.5 years, but the question is like, is there a structure in place that they say, this is what we're doing? I mean, how does that?
Continuing meeting, the administration staff, nurses meet.
There should be an administrative regulation written specifically to address the health and safety plan. In fact, what we really need is a policy that addresses the health and safety plan. And then the administrative regulation would be written against that, or basically would tie into that.
I mean, it just seems that if we're doing this, that we need to at least make some sort of a statement that, you know, as far as contact tracing and quarantining, that the administration is making the decisions on that.
So when I'm in Wise tomorrow, and a parent stops and asks me if my kid's asymptomatic, they have to go to school, what do I tell them?
You would tell them call contact the school.
Yeah. Yeah, but 1, 2, and 3 is what the district will be implementing. From the report today, but you're right, Todd, it's changed. It's getting more flexible and getting more lenient for sure, and it will continue to go that direction, I believe.
As we adopt this plan tonight, there also should be a directive to the administration that tomorrow there be a communication to the community about options for asymptomatic and options for symptomatic.
Okay.
So to Claude's question, every parent should have received that communication.
So we could have, okay, all right, he says, first of all, let me propose that as an amendment, that the district will continue it's consideration of PDH contact tracing requirements, period. All right. Shall we continue consideration of them, considering them, looking at them, see what they're saying? Is that acceptable? Stripping down, stripping it down, taking some, you know, some tightness out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I intend, that's when I made my motion. I intended that wording to be.
Except Dave, from the email, the nurses are saying that DOH no longer wants to be involved in contact tracing, so I think it's consider CDC standards, not DOH. Per the email we received. The email we received says DOH no longer wants to be involved in contact tracing, that it's, whatever you said, will consider CDC standards, like you said, but not necessarily follow.
Well, they're
But
not
CDC
involved in
not.
terms of the superintendent sends a report and that's it. It probably goes to the server somewhere and is lost forever. So they aren't calling homes or anything like that anymore. That's just not happening. But they still do have contact tracing documents out there. But we're not going to be bound by it. We'll consider what they say, because there might be useful information, there might not be. And then that's where it ends. We'll consider what's there. So that's what I'm trying to convey in this, is that we just consider it, but that's it.
I still say that directives need to be in the health and safety plan. And I think it was Todd that asked about it, if a parent asked him what the health and safety plan requirements are, and the answer is to call the district. No, it'd be a lot easier to say the health and safety plan is on the district's website, and everything is explained in that health and safety plan, so you know what is required of you as a parent.
All right. For good or bad, we try to get down that road. The amendments were accepted. We can make that clear by other avenues, but that's not available for putting in the plan. We've already had fallen on space. So we can deal with that in terms of making sure that's conveyed through another outlet. For E, Dale, will you accept that amendment that the district will continue its consideration of PDH contact tracing requirements, period? That's all? No, PDH. PDH.
Yes.
And if we want to look at the CDC file, we're going to do that, because that's what they've been doing. They're surveying the landscape and seeing what's happening, evaluating it, does it work here, do we want to do this? There's an element of operational details that we've got to let them do their job. I don't want to do their job.
Well, and I think that gives them flexibility that when this thing starts easing up, that they can back off a little bit too.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is the direction they're going. I know that. Joe, Dale's okay with that amendment, right, Dale?
Yes.
Are you okay with that amendment I proposed on E? All right. Now, we could have a statement in here that says, administration shall notify the public, notify the district, notify of any operational changes or some kind of word. You can put that in there.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
They need to do that, that we're directing them to do that.
All right, so let's get some wording that just says the administration will notify the district, within 3 days, I don't know, or of any operational changes to contact tracing requirements and quarantine.
Yes.
Something like that?
Yes. Of all change, yeah.
What changes? You're not putting it up here in South.
Quarantine or contact tracing in.
We're giving them
We're telling them
to
we're saying
changes according to the situation, and that they have to communicate that clearly anytime they do that. Starting tomorrow morning, they have to communicate what they're doing, and anytime they change it, they communicate that directly.
So is each school doing their own thing, or is it a collaboration all together? Or it's principal developing one?
No, it's collaboration. Not that there won't be some glitches and inconsistency. That's what we humans do. We're very inconsistent. But the intent is, yes, this is how you operate across the district. It is. Does it work out that way? Probably not. But it's supposed to. So language for a second sentence need that says administration will
notify public immediately of any changes to contact tracing protocol.
and contact tracing and quarantine protocol. Okay. Immediately on any changes to contact tracing and quarantine protocols.
What are the contact tracing protocols and quarantine protocols?
Well, we have it in the email today from this administration, and that's going to go out tomorrow. That's going to go out tomorrow.
So you want to mask the kids, is that what you're saying? Is that where we're going here?
Well,
Back to that?
that's, yes,
They
exactly.
recommended for the quarantine, yes.
What's that?
I was answering a question. They recommended if somebody is close contact, they would mask to be back in school.
For a healthy asymptomatic child.
Correct.
So right now, we're starting this whole conversation. Right back from the beginning.
But we couldn't come up with any language, Dave, that's what I mean. If that verbiage was not accepted by the motion or seconder, that's the process.
So why is the motion withdrawn? And we start over, because that's where we're at right now.
No, because we're
Well, I think it's gonna come to a vote, and if it gets voted down, then we start over.
Well, that's true, that's right, if it gets voted down.
I mean, that's what we really need to do here. I mean, if it gets voted down, it gets voted down.
Are we able to add a request to the administration to add Dale's thing about the negative test allowing asymptomatic contacts to return without a mask?
Well, you can propose that. That's an effort to E.
I mean, that's going to potentially get rid of that 5-day mask for asymptomatic close contacts.
I see that as a separate issue. If we want to address the mailing that we're asking the administration to make, it contains these options, if we want to amend that's a separate action.
Okay.
Right now, we're looking to vote on acceptance of health and safety plan with the modification that they just proposed.
Okay.
We now go up or down, and we go back, address it again, because we've got to pass something tonight.
The second amendment to that, or the second sentence to E, we got the verbiage worked out. Who suggested that? I mean, I heard people talk about it. Who wants to suggest that? It would read, the administration will notify the public immediately upon any changes to contact tracing and quarantining protocol.
I'll take responsibility for that.
All right. So,
Sounds good.
all right, okay, all right, so that's it. All right, now we're on that. And this is screening or testing. We did talk about this a good bit during the committee met last month. I mean,
I think it should stay the same as it was in the previous health and safety plan.
I think we need to leave it as the committee that met January 4th, because we'll still need it for the household contacts to return on day 5. And like Mr. Young said, it's ridiculous to get a test anywhere in the community. So if the subcommittee agreed that parent proctored within the site was acceptable, that's going to prevent those household contacts from waiting 3 hours at Med Express for a test.
Well, if there's no amendments to this being proposed, personally, I'm okay with it. This keeps us in school, keeps kids in school safely. Let's face it, there's not a whole lot to these antigen tests as far as, the intrusiveness of them.
Well, and like Dan said, athletes who want to participate, again, it's crazy anywhere else, so if it can be done by the parent, quickly.
All right, not hearing much on that. Let's move to G. The language change. Oh, go ahead.
Hang on just a minute. I just want to say if we would be specific in E, we wouldn't even need F because asymptomatics wouldn't be required to get a test.
But the household contacts would.
But we couldn't cross that bridge because that's what's accepted, so we got to move forward. We can't get there. We can't get where we want to go, Ron, sorry.
Well, I just want to make that clear to everybody that it's a moot point.
And I understand, I hear you. All right, G, district is one sentence, I mean, it's shrunk down quite a bit. Part of the reason that the vaccination statement to attend school while we're halfway through the school year. So part of that language is no longer, even relevant. And I think we've made it clear we're not doing vaccinations. We're not offering them. We're not participating at all. So if you're okay with that, as it is, it's just sharing information, period. H, as you can see, was shrunk down substantially just to say, the IEP or 504 is going to dictate what we'll be doing there, as it should. I'm not sure there's a typo. It says, in the original Pennsylvania, the district will follow Pennsylvania laws. I'd like to have that Pennsylvania laws back in there.
I need to say something about the disability.
Go ahead.
Sebastian, can you hear me?
Yes, everyone can hear me.
Can I speak?
Yes.
For the bullet on the students with meeting their IEP in 504, there have been concerns from parents and lawsuits in other school districts that those students' needs are not being met when we don't mandate masks in high transmission times, that the students are put in danger of getting, if they're immunocompromised, etc., with severe asthma, of getting COVID, and we're not meeting their needs by making the environment safe. So as we have discussed to give some vague parameters to our administration and nurses regarding contact tracing, etc., I'd like to see that also in masks. So I know that we said optional masks last July, numbers were really low. And I didn't vote for that because we don't know where it's going to go. So I think we need to keep this health and safety plan flexible enough. If we have lots of transmission within the school district, student to student, student to community, then we need to be able to mandate that for a certain period of time. No.
I kind of think that's a hot button issue right there. We should revisit.
Right, that goes back to me, yeah. Because we can revise this at any time, right?
I think we're making a compromise at the close contacts. I mean, yeah.
And I would hope that Mr. Hanner would work with the students with IEPs or 504s to make sure any medically disabled kids are safe.
Would an IEP not make comments out if the student had issues? Say that they masking is to their detriment?
Yeah, I think you can make it pretty specific.
So really, the language is, it's just, that's where the IEP would address whether, and it would kind of supersede anything else we were saying here regarding contact tracing. Absolutely. The IEP is going to be the overriding factor.
So those plans are revised on a case-by-case basis as per the need, and that's specific to the plan. It really isn't something.
Review every 6 months, so you can make adjustments at any time. As a parent, as you should.
So any of those scenarios, those parents are going to be, should be engaged in doing, okay. All right. So this is a simple statement, as opposed to the revision, that meets what we need to meet? All right. Okay. Well, then, jumping into I, District of Fall, Pennsylvania laws, I don't know what happened to the word, honestly, I just think it's a typo. And it's, with that, it just says the same thing we did last time. And although it says this time, instead of consider recommendations, it says review recommendations, so that's even softer, which I'm good with. So again, it doesn't bind us to anything except the law, and that's it. That fulfills obviously what we need to be fulfilled as part of our oath to, by the Constitution of Pennsylvania. We have to follow the law.
And I guess before we vote, like we said, these other directions didn't work out tonight, but this can be revised at any time. So if we want to continue to bring up this issue of the administration guidelines versus pounding it out specifically in the health and safety plan, we can bring that up periodically if people want that specificity added, right?
Sure, absolutely.
I don't see it ever happening.
Well, I hope in 4 to 6 weeks this plan is meaningless.
Once there's a vote here, if it passes, it won't get looked at for another 6 months.
Well, I guess I would hope that if we hear that that system is not working and things aren't being communicated, you know what I mean? I would trust that we'll hear from you that,
Well, I think the communication element we added tonight is real critical. That's always been a gap, and I think that's good. All right, we've worked our way through it. So this time, I guess we'll get my sheet out, and I guess we'll do a voice vote. We have the motion, we have the second, we have the amendments to it. So with that, I guess let's go through the voting. Dr. Berry, do you approve the plan as amended tonight?
yes.
Dr. LeCrone, do you approve the plan as amended tonight?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
No.
Dottie, are you connected still? And did she say yea or nay?
Yeah.
And
Pretty no.
is that-
No.
Oh. Okay. Mine's a yes. Mr. Badger? Mr. Romer?
Yes.
And Mr. Albers absent. And Mr. Snell?
No.
So we got to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3 passage of the revised health and safety plan. And we're at 9:05. We can take comment, but we'll have to extend the meeting.
Motion to extend.
Second.
All again.
As the deliberation was going on about the health and safety plan, I was jotting down notes, thoughts as we were going through all of this. I noticed dysfunction. I noticed people not knowing all the information that should have been provided to have this kind of in-depth conversation. I'm flabbergasted. If the top can't run properly, how do you expect anything underneath it to run? Top down. When I do my job, I believe in 100% communication. If everyone working with me doesn't know the information that I know in order to make decisions about students' lives and education, I would be doing a disservice to my students. A disservice is being done to residents, and I think to board members themselves. When we talk about procedures on contact tracing, communications to residents about close contacts, it needs to be set at each building. It can't be this person does this and let's do this. That creates disarray, chaoticness. I want to live my life knowing, like, if this occurs in my family, I know these are the steps that are going to occur. We are planned out as family units. We need that information. It needs to be district-wide. On a weekly basis, if the numbers are going to come out or whatever, that's one voice coming from this district to the district as a whole with numbers as a whole. If you want to get into like building numbers, so be it. But one voice. We need one voice here. We talk local control. Local control should listen to the ones they hire to provide them the best information and recommendations. Listen to your nurses, listen to your administrators, and listen to your teachers about decisions when it comes to the health and safety plan. I personally would go to my nurses first. Whether I like what they say or not, I'm going to have to go with them once in a while. Like, that also builds support for your staff from the top. And then the question, the people we hire, as if we don't trust their opinions, we can do better. I would like to know who on this board has talked with teachers of this district about learning gaps they're seeing with their kids? Who on this board has talked with teachers in this district about the challenges they face when students return from quarantine? The ones that are repeated quarantines. Have a conversation with them. See what their challenges are. Reach out. It's a lot more insightful to sit up here when you've had that experience to know what your district is going through at the ground level. Thank you.
Mr. Estelle, I just want to let you know that I do talk to the teachers.
Thank you.
Same here.
Awesome. That's why I asked.
The numbers that we were able to get from other districts were shared with people in their community. They didn't have to file a right to know or anything like that. We had complained about not being able to have the numbers for a long time. We don't even need them building by building, but we were able to prove that the contact tracing was not necessary from low numbers in other districts. We weren't able to get them from Southside because contact tracing isn't even a thing there anymore. So, you know, when the vote came up that Dale didn't want to vote for Mr. I guess I'm supposed to be talking to you, sorry. Dale Almer did not want the kids not to be masked. We proved that the masks don't work. It's not cherry picking, and he put us right back on that mask issue. Oh, you're going to have to wear the mask. The kids shouldn't, if they're asymptomatic, they shouldn't have to wear a mask, and they shouldn't have to prove that they're healthy just to be able to be in school. So, I mean, I can honestly say, for lack of better words, you know, Dale Almer screwed that up tonight. And it's unfortunate that, you know, there are some board members, it was Sue Beery and Mr. LeCrone, they were masked up to their eyeballs just a week ago, trying to keep the masks on these kids, and tonight they walk in and they're just breathing free and they're smiling. I'm not upset that they're smiling, but I am upset with the showboating that they did trying to keep these masks on these kids. And for Mrs. Mathers to go ahead and try to use kids with disabilities to get these masks back on our students is ridiculous. Thank you.
I believe I'm 6 feet away from you, and I'm vaxxed and boosted. And I had
don't have a lot to swear. Thank you for letting me talk in the midst of it. I appreciate it. The one thing that I am going to ask, since we couldn't put it in specific in E, is to honestly make sure that the administration is passing on. I did for months, and you all know this. I wrote how many times to get contact tracing ready. Couldn't get the flow chart updated. And it was specifically written in our health and safety plan what we were supposed to be following. That's why I wanted it so specific, Dave, in all honesty. Because it changes every single day, it seems like. Didn't know that they were doing the testing that we had come out with from committee. Had no idea. I had a parent ask, do we have to wear a mask for 10 days in order not to quarantine? I said, no, that's not in the health and safety plan. Apparently I was wrong. So this has to be clear as day. It can't differ from building to building. It can't be this nurse wants to do this and this nurse wants to do this, because that happened. That happened the whole time. And that's why I was so, it has to be so clear. So, I mean, Christina, I know, had said that all out earlier because she sent me a message that she was working on it with the nurses. Why didn't the rest of the board have that email before you even walked in? I mean, I didn't have the exact verbiage or email. I just said we're working. She just said we're working on something similar. So great, but the fact that we're masking asymptomatic kids and healthy kids again, I mean, she talks about not wanting to supply numbers because of drawing attention to one kid. Well, if one kid is absent and all the kids around him are wearing masks, I don't know, we now know who the COVID positive kid is, right? I mean, where's the logic in that? So we can't have numbers for the buildings because we don't want to identify the COVID positive child, but yet the COVID positive child will be the one out, and all the kids around them are going to have masks on. I'm just looking for some logic. I'm just looking for some normalcy for our children. That's all. You know, I mean, with the numbers on positives and the healthy kids, I mean, you know, I try to be as respectful as possible, but some of this stuff just doesn't make sense. But please hold them to their feet to the fire and make sure it is disseminated properly, because it is frustrating. It's, yeah. So, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I know it's hard.
I want to apologize for my outburst during the meeting. I shouldn't have done that. I should have held my tongue. It's very hard not making excuses, but not being able to speak during a lot of it, it's just hard. So my apologies for that. I kind of don't understand why we were here for over 2 hours when our fellow districts already have this in place. Monty, since November, 141 pages. 141 pages spelled out. It's there. It's working for them. Jersey Shore, Danville, Loyalsock now, they all have it. Not one of their plans says a close contact asymptomatic child must be masked for 5 days. Not one. Why are we trying to bring masks back to sick kids? Want to reiterate exactly what Sharon said. Y'all said that these kids were being bullied or isolated. My kid's in first grade. She comes home and tells me, so-and-so's not in school today, they had their closure, they have to be quarantined. She's in first grade, she's 7. She knows she can figure it out. So can the middle school kids and the high school kids. Sick kids shouldn't have to be masked again. We shouldn't have to be here for over 2 hours when other districts have this out and it's working. Again, I apologize for my outburst. I do appreciate everything you guys do. It's a hard job, but I just wish we could have came to something a little better tonight.
I guess, see anybody else coming forward, so with that word, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Or what?
Or move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, ayes have it, meeting adjourned.